Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are going to be unboxing, assembling, taking a first look, and reviewing the Windone K2 Fat Tire Urban Explorer electric bike. In this holistic video, we will show you everything there is to know about this e-bike, from receiving the package and setup, to helpful tips and the performance you can expect. The K2 is an affordable, modern moped-style fat tire electric bike that currently retails for $799.99 and usually costs around $1,500 according to their website. Bikes of this style have become very popular lately, reminding me a lot of the Super 73s. This bike is designed primarily for urban environments, but is capable of some off-road exploration with its large 4-inch by 20-inch knobby tires and full suspension. Now, getting into the unboxing, the K2 comes in a massive, thick cardboard box, weighing in at 105.8 pounds. Though not necessary, it's definitely nice to have a second set of hands when unboxing and setting up this bike due to the sheer size and weight of this thing. To remove the bike from the box, we cut open the top panel, tilted the box on its side, and then slid the bike out horizontally. The bike came extremely well packaged with a ton of foam covering all of the tubing to keep it from getting scratched. There were also a lot of zip ties holding various pieces of the bike together to the main frame and foam. The bike comes in one big chunk, all zip tied and foam padded together, but still comes in multiple pieces, 90% assembled. There is a second, much smaller bubble wrapped bundle inside of the box that has all of the accessories that come with the bike. The first item in the accessories is the user manual, which has a lot of helpful information on setting up the bike and tips to get the most out of this product. Second, there were the pedals, which are standard bike pedals. Third, there was the charger, which was a lot smaller than I was expecting. It charges at a rate of 2 amps, taking a total of 6 to 7 hours to fully charge the battery. The connector is a typical 2.1mm DC barrel jack. For the charger, there is also a standard US wall power adapter. Next, there is a tool bag which contains everything you need to assemble the bike and perform basic maintenance. This included 6 Allen keys, 3 double-sided wrenches, and a Phillips head screwdriver. The rear suspension shock absorber also came in this smaller package. An accessory that was a nice touch is this foot pump to inflate the tires, which is great to have if you don't already have a bike pump on hand. Even if you do have a bike pump, this is a pretty nifty compact version that can be helpful in a pinch. And that's everything for the accessories. Here's a closer look at everything that came in the smaller bubble wrapped bundle. This section of the video will focus on assembly, so if you wish to skip right to the first look and review portion of this video, check the chapters built in below. The first step in assembly was to just take off all of the foam to access the main frame and all of the other parts. We spent about 20 minutes carefully removing all of the packaging and cutting zip ties, so there was a lot of packaging and this bike was packaged very well. In this larger bundle, there are 5 primary things: the bulk of the bike that is already assembled, the front wheel, the battery, the headlight, and the front fender. The first step in assembly is to mount the front fender to the frame of the bike. Simply undo the bolt on the front of the fork, slide in the fender, and then retighten the bolt using one of the Allen keys and wrenches provided. Note that we mounted the fender on backwards in this video, and it's on backwards throughout this video, so just mount it in reverse to the way that we did. The second step is to mount the front wheel to the front fork. First, the plastic cover on the front wheel must be removed. Then the plastic insert in the front of the fork must be removed. The wheel is held in by a metal bolt that has 2 different sized spacers and 2 washers on it. First, slide the wheel roughly between the front fork, aligning the disc brake. Then slide in the small spacer on the side with the brake and slot the axle through the frame into the wheel. On the other side of the wheel, add the larger spacer. To secure the wheel and the axle, make sure that both sides have a washer and then tighten the nuts using the wrenches included. At this point, we pumped up the front and rear tires using the included foot pump, though it is definitely faster if you have a normal bike pump. It is essential to ensure that the tires are properly seated on the rim to avoid damage or tire failure during inflation. The third step in assembly is to mount the handlebars to the frame. First, unscrew the 4 bolts on the handlebar clamp, then remove the top half of the clamp, slide the handlebars into place, and then add back the top half of the clamp. The angle of the bar can be set to your liking during this step to get the most comfortable ride feeling. After finding a good position, fully tighten the bolts to clamp the handlebar in place. The next step is to install the rear shock absorber. First, undo the bolts holding the metal plate spacer. Next, adjust the swing arm into place and slide the shock absorber into place, aligning it as shown here, with the black part on the top and the silver part on the bottom. To secure the shock absorber, add 1 bolt through the bottom and 1 bolt through the top of the shock absorber, and then tighten them using the Allen key. Next, we mounted the front headlight into place. The headlight slides between the 2 metal bars that stick out of the front of the bike. On each side of the headlight between the metal bars, add the included rubber washer. Then add the bolt to fix the light into place. The angle of the light can be changed as desired to illuminate what's helpful for you when riding at night. At this point, we connected the 2 sets of cables on the front of the bike. They are color coordinated so you know which pairs go together. There's one black set and one orange set. After connecting up the wires, we added the pedals to the bike. Each pedal is labeled as the side that it's on matters. To install the pedal on the crank, simply thread the pedal in and then finish it off with the included wrench. The last step in assembly to get this bike up and running is to mount the battery. Simply slide the battery onto the mount rail. To lock the battery down, use the included key and rotate the lock 180 degrees. This will keep the battery secure on the bike and will help prevent bike theft. Now that we finished the assembly, we're going to take a first look at this bike, going over all of the components used and some of its key features. First, let's talk dimensions. The bike is 67.3 inches long with a 43.7 inch long wheelbase. The seat sits at 34.3 inches high and the handlebars sit at around 42.9 inches. The handlebars are 27.5 inches wide. Notably, the seat is 23.6 inches long, which is extra long for rider adjustability and to accommodate a second rider. In fact, there are also foot pegs on the back of the bike for that second rider, which I really like. Speaking of this seat is non-adjustable, meaning that the bike is designed to be one size fits all. Consequently, the only way to adjust leg position on the pedals is to scoot farther back on the seat. Windone claims that this bike is suitable for riders from 5'7" to 6'7", and that it has a weight capacity of 330 pounds. The overall bike weight is 88 pounds. The bike has that retro moped-style aesthetic thanks to the frame and seat, which I personally love. The frame is made from an aluminum alloy. As I mentioned earlier in this video, this bike is technically full suspension with both a front fork suspension and a shock absorber under the seat. The front suspension has up to 80 millimeters of travel and is adjustable with the knobs on the top of the fork. The rear shock absorber has an 165 millimeter center distance with a 1,200 pound capacity. The wheels on the bike feature 20-inch by 4-inch fat knobby tires. These tires are beefy with an aggressive wide tread for maximum grip. The width and tread style provide good traction on a variety of surfaces, making light off-roading possible and ensuring that the bike does not sink as easily in soft ground. They are also super comfortable and stable thanks to their width. Both wheels also have fenders to prevent debris and water from flying up. The bike has pedals and a drivetrain similar to most other typical bikes, and features a 7-speed Shimano derailleur to adjust pedal difficulty on hills. The K2 also has front and rear hydraulic brakes, which is awesome to see and should be the case on any similar bike. Now shifting over to the electronics, the K2 utilizes a hub motor in the rear wheel with 500 watts of nominal power and 750 watts of peak power. The battery is enclosed in a nice plastic casing for weatherproofing. The battery is 48 volts with a 13 amp hour capacity, making the battery 624 watt hours. The design uses these prongs on the bottom side that slide into the rail on the bike for easy connection so that when you slide the battery onto the bike, the battery automatically connects to the rest of the electronics. The charge port on the battery is on this side under the rotating cap. Because the battery can be removed, the battery can be charged on the bike or removed from the bike to be charged separately. Next to the charge port is this red toggle switch, which is one of the power switches for the bike that must be on for it to work. On the top side of the battery, there is also a battery light indicator. The other side of the battery has the keyhole to lock the battery onto the bike. It also has a USB port, which is nice to charge mobile accessories. Now moving over to the controls for the bike, on the right side of the handlebars, the K2 has a twist throttle that can be used to power the bike without pedaling. Next to the twist throttle, there is a horn button, which is actually decently loud. The gear shifting mechanism is also on the right side of the handlebars with a button to shift up and a trigger shifter to shift down. The left side of the handlebars has all of the controls for the display screen that sits in the middle. The small front-facing button powers on the bike and the screen. The 2 larger buttons on the top shift the bike between speed modes. There are 6 speed modes in total, ranging from 0 to 5. The closest button on the side turns on the headlight and dims the screen at the same time for nighttime riding. The second side button changes the display contents on the screen between different data types. Overall, the K2 has super simple controls with an intuitive display. The integrated headlight is very nice and is very bright. I love the old retro motorcycle headlight aesthetic, and I've been surprised at how bright and useful this is when riding at night. There's also a taillight on the back of the seat, but it's not connected to the battery on the bike and instead has its own battery. It has to be turned on manually and feels a little bit cheap. That's it for the first look and all of the components in this bike. The review section of this video is split up into categories detailing various important specs and aspects of this e-bike. These can be found using the chapters built into this video. The first spec is the top speed of the bike, and Windone advertises that the K2 has a top speed of 28 miles per hour, which is the upper limit of a Class 3 e-bike. On our speed test, we were able to hit a top speed of exactly 28 miles per hour using either the throttle or by pedaling. It takes a while and a long run-up to get up to top speed, so we rarely reached it. Typically, we found ourselves maxing out in the mid-20s. The advertised range on the K2 is dependent on how the bike is ridden, so this specification is very difficult to quantify for everyone's use case. Windone claims 46.6 miles or 75 kilometers if using pedal assist, or 28 miles or 45 kilometers using just the throttle. Just as they claim, our range test fluctuated greatly depending on the riding style and the conditions used to test the bike. We found ourselves using a mix of pedaling and pedal assist mode 5 and throttling while riding. Typically, we use the pedals to start and reach some speed, and then use the throttle to maintain that speed. Based on our experience with the bike, I would say that you can expect to get around 25 to 30 miles or 40 to 48 kilometers riding the way that we did. These results were achieved using an 150-pound rider in 40-degree Fahrenheit weather on moderately hilly terrain. If pedaling more and using a lower pedal assist mode, then more range is definitely possible, and if fully on the throttle, then you're likely going to get an even lower range. Either way, the advertised ranges are definitely absolute best cases and a little inflated, so expect a little less than stated on their website. The amount of range that we got out of the bike was plenty for taking the bike out for fun and mid-range commuting trips. The third topic is the hill climbing ability of the K2. Windone claims that the K2 can climb hills up to 20%, though we didn't explicitly test this. My experience with this bike is that it can handle pretty much any typical hill as long as you're pedaling. The bike definitely does not zip up hills and does slow down a lot as it powers up the hill. The pedal assist ensures that even on relatively steep hills, the bike is easy to pedal, and coming from a regular bike, the pedal assist feels completely magical as it propels you up the hills more easily. Overall, the K2 gets the job done on hills, but it's not super powerful. The fourth topic is the acceleration and braking of this bike. This bike does not feel particularly torquey and has a pretty mild acceleration. In fact, the K2 accelerates faster under pedaling than it does under pure throttling. For example, it took us 20.25 seconds to reach top speed under pure throttle and just 19 seconds to reach top speed under pedaling. This being said, immediately off the line, the K2 is actually faster under just throttling because it takes a couple of seconds for the pedal assist to kick in once you start pedaling. The acceleration is perfectly suited for a casual cruising machine, rather than something that just rips off the line for the pure sake of fun. There are 6 speed modes on the bike. Mode 0 has no throttle or pedal assist, and is just pedaling the bike. The K2 is surprisingly easy to pedal considering its weight, which I was surprised by. I definitely would not recommend pedaling over long distances, but it is possible if necessary. The other 5 speed modes, modes 1 through 5, alter the acceleration and the top speed of the bike, with 5 being the strongest. The brakes on the bike are also very strong, and it's a huge plus that they're hydraulic. The strong stopping power allows the bike to come to a stop very quickly, which is especially important on a heavy bike that can go up to 28 miles per hour. The fifth category is the ride feeling and comfort of the bike. As I mentioned earlier in this video, this e-bike is one size fits all as the seat does not adjust. The only way to adjust the pedaling position is to sit further back on the seat. Even then, it can be harder for taller people to get an ergonomic position that is pleasant to pedal the bike with. This bike is definitely pedalable, but it seems like it's designed more with aesthetics and the throttle use case in mind. I would describe the Windone K2 as being easy to pedal, but not the most pleasant to pedal because of the seating position. If you're looking for an e-bike that you want to pedal, I would probably not recommend this one, as there are other more practical e-bikes better suited for this. Next, the seat on the bike matches that moped look, but is not the most comfortable over long distances. This goes hand in hand with the notion of this bike not being adjustable. While the seat itself is not particularly comfortable on longer rides, the bike overall is very comfortable and smooth. The extra thick 4-inch tires smoothen the ride and eat up everything in their path. The full suspension on the bike also helps tackle all sorts of terrain very easily. Here's a video of the bike going straight at a curb, and you can see just how much the shocks absorb. I felt comfortable shredding the K2 anywhere at speed, as it could tackle anything that I threw at it in an urban environment. The weight of the bike is another thing that is noticeable in the way that the bike rides. At 88 pounds, the K2 feels much heavier and harder to maneuver than a typical bike. This being said, it is still completely manageable and nimble enough for its use case. The biggest takeaway that I have from the ride feeling though is that this bike is just pure fun to ride. It makes going from point A to point B an experience, popping in and out of short carves and rounding corners. It's definitely not the most comfortable or practical e-bike in terms of pure utility for commuting and pedaling, but it's a whole lot of fun. The next category that we have is off-roading with this bike. Windone advertises the K2 as being all-terrain compatible, and I can say that this is certainly true to an extent. The K2 is great on compact trails, dirt, gravel, and grass. It has pretty good traction and good enough suspension for a comfortable ride on these rougher surfaces. Here's a clip of us sending the bike down this grassy, gravel, and dirt hill, and you can see that it handles just fine and is a whole lot of fun. The fat, treaded tires in particular make a world of difference on these types of terrain, as they prevent the bike from sinking, increase traction, and are just more comfortable overall. I probably would not take this bike on some more serious off-roading, but it can hold its own for some moderate cases. The ability for off-roading and the overall versatility is one of the huge advantages of these fat tires, and is one of the things that I love most about this e-bike. Our last section is the miscellaneous topics, which includes all of the other things that we have noticed about this bike that we think are worth mentioning. The first subtopic here is the ability to have a second passenger. We tested this out a few times with family members for a quick trip around the block, and it was an absolute blast. This was both really fun, and I could see the second passenger aspect being really useful on short trips. Second, I wanted to touch on the built-in headlight. The headlight is absolutely necessary when riding at night and makes a huge difference. I originally thought that it was primarily there for aesthetic purposes, but I now see it as one of the most practical features on the e-bike. Lastly, I wanted to touch on the aesthetics of this bike and the repercussions of that. The Moped-Style Super 73-esque bikes have become very popular lately. I personally love this style of bike and the way that they look. I think that the style and design makes for a fun ride feeling and is just perceived as being a cool thing to have. The downside to this style is that these bikes are not as comfortable to pedal because they don't have adjustable seats. I think that a lot of people are probably looking at bikes like this because of their aesthetic and design, so this is a really important consideration. I personally love this style and would choose a moped-style e-bike for myself, but my dad, for example, is less of a fan because they're not as practical. After riding the K2 around for the past few months, here are my concluding thoughts on this e-bike. For $799.99, this moped-style e-bike is an absolute steal, and I could not recommend it more if you're interested in an e-bike of this style. The K2 has a top speed of 28 miles an hour, 25 plus miles of range, a 750 watt peak hub motor, a 7-speed transmission, and hydraulic brakes. There are very few other similar style e-bikes in this price range that come close to the performance and features on this bike. That's all I have for this review on the Windone K2 Fat Tire Urban Explorer e-bike. If you are interested in learning more about this product, we will have a link to it in the description below. We also have a discount code in the description for anyone interested in purchasing this product. If you have any questions or comments, let us know in the comment section below.